This podcast is also sponsored by Kadan Kadan. Kadan Kadan is a new groupage app that allows you to share space within a shipping container so that you can save costs when it comes to your logistics and transportation. Visit kadankadan.com to learn more, or visit the Instagram page Kadan Kadan Official. Hello, Richard. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. Before we start, I just wanted to quickly introduce myself. My name is Malobi. You've probably been speaking with my uh, staff, Uche.
Yeah.
So he's basically the one that helped to set up this meeting and everything. And
Yep.
so not too long ago. And we're just really just speaking to different African countries around the world, African entrepreneurs doing amazing stuff. And we stumbled upon your company and what you do, and we just thought, let's try and promote a fellow Ugandan brother, your business, talk about what you do, some of the opportunities and the challenges you have in Uganda. And that's pretty much it. That's just a little bit about me. So and then also, just to let you know before we start, it's gonna be recorded, right? So
Yep.
anything that you want to edit or take away after the recording, we're more than happy to do that. Nothing is set in stone, right? But how are you doing anyways? How's your day going?
I'm doing very well. The day's been quite busy, but yeah, I'm doing very well right now. It's an evening for us, a little bit of a
Awesome,
drizzle.
awesome. And what
Yeah.
nice, nice, nice. And what part of Uganda are you based?
Northern Uganda. It's Gulu, the city.
Okay, okay. So not on the capital Kampala, right?
No, we're 6 hours from
How do
Kampala.
you spell Gudu?
Gulu.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh Gulu. Okay, Gulu,
Yes.
Uganda.
Yes.
Wow, that's
Yes.
6 hours.
Yes.
Sometimes
six
you
hours.
forget that different African countries are big,
Yes, yes,
big
for
big
sure.
countries. It's like
Yeah, very big countries.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
All right. So I understand, you probably got a lot of things planned for today. So if you're ready, I can sort of dive straight into the podcast if that's okay with you.
Yeah, can you hear me clearly though?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, then that should be fine. That was my only worry, but if you can hear me, we should be good to go.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. So, good day, everyone. This is Malobi from the Kadan Kadan podcast. And today I'm joined by a guest from Uganda. It's our first Ugandan guest. I'm really looking forward to speaking with Richard here about his company, what they do. And also, it's a sector that I'm really interested in because I'm someone that's based in Nigeria, but we've been having some challenges in this sector. So I'm pretty interested to hear what's going on over there in Uganda. So, um, good day, good evening, Richard. How are you doing? How's your day going?
Oh, I'm doing very well. Nice to meet you. I'm really honored to be here.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you so much. And so before we get into it, I like to have our guests sort of introduce themselves. Tell us, who you are, what your company called, and what does your company do?
Okay, thank you. My name is Richard Obuku. I am born and raised in Uganda. So I live in Gulu, the northern part of the nation. And I, I'm a co-founder and the CEO of a company called River Poultry. At the core of River Poultry is we use advanced technologies, including robotics and AI, to help smallholder farmers become profitable. And we use that because at the end of the day, Africa seems to struggle, especially in the poultry industry, where we still depend on data from Europe to make decisions on what to do in our chicken farms. And as a result, we found us, providing irrelevant advice to smallholder farmers that tends to not make them profitable. And we are looking to use technology to disrupt that and make a difference for the smallholder farmer here in Uganda. That's what our company does. Thank you.
Fantastic. Can you put your video on? I just had mine off
Oh,
temporarily just to move positions.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, but it's absolutely fine.
Okay.
Okay, so you're mainly focused on, from what I understand, that providing data using artificial intelligence for the poultry sector. Would that be correct? Summary?
And not only that, maybe I can delve a little bit on our company. We were
Mm-hmm.
founded in 2016, and at the time we were focused on basically providing high quality chicken for the small scale restaurants that are in our neighborhood, in our city especially. But then we quickly learned that we had very good products, but we weren't able to satisfy the demand that was coming. We started then partnering with smallholder farmers to help us go through, continue to have consistency in supply. We quickly also learned that, every time we had supplies coming in from the farmers or outside of our own farm, our customers complained because there was a difference in terms of quality. And then we set out to make a difference by beginning to develop the entire value chain. So we then started producing the feeds and providing the support that the farmers needed, and then also the processing of the chicken. But in 2023, that's when we noticed that, the farmers in our network were very successful and the farmers outside of our network seemed not to be. And we needed to begin to share our secret. We then, at that time, quickly learned that our secret actually lies in our attention to detail, and that was driven by data. We were able to focus on weighing birds on a day-to-day basis and ensuring that we supplied them with the feed that is measured and also understood. And as we trained our farmers to do it that way, we needed to be able to build a scalable model. And at that time, that's when we realized, becoming a tech company would actually be the game changer in the overall thing. So yes, data and technology is at the core of what makes our business disruptive, but we still continue to do the processing of the chicken and working along the value chain as well. Thank you.
Okay, for there's going to be people listening to this that are new to the poultry value chain, right? And there's so many pieces that you're in, and I like the fact that you're diversified but still in the poultry value chain.
Yeah.
So let's start off with the inputs, right? Let's start off with the
Yes.
feed.
Yeah.
As an example, in Nigeria, prices have gone up of eggs and
Yeah.
chicken in general, because of the price of maize that's going in. So, are you guys involved in any way in the production of feed and production of maize, or do you maybe like buy from suppliers, and so how does that piece work with your company?
Yes, we actually are actively involved in the feed manufacture because we make custom feed formulations for our own chicken farmers. So we outsource the manufacturing, but we are heavily involved in ensuring that our quality is maintained in terms of formulation. And then we also still work with thousands of farmers that provide us with the supply of especially the maize and the soybean that makes up about 80% of the feed that we produce. In our country, instead, is yes, prices are going up, but the farmers that are producing maize and soybean are actually complaining every month. And one of the things that we've begun to do, especially for this year, is rather than tell farmers to sell to us, we're saying, why don't you just sell chicken instead of selling the maize? And we've then realized that, if farmers can begin to, grow the maize as raw material for their own chickens to be produced, because yes, chicken prices are going up, and that's a good thing, especially if you're in control of the feed. But if you're not, then of course you definitely are at a loss. And one of the things that we then continue to push is that the farmers that used to only supply us the raw materials, that is maize and soybean, can also begin to diversify and take advantage of the low prices on the feed end, but that allows them to be more profitable on the chicken end.
Okay, okay. And just so I can wrap my head around this, right? So if you're encouraging farmers to get into actual having their own chickens, etc., does that mean that they're selling the maize to the manufacturers and then buying the feed and then using that for their own chickens? Or are they just growing the maize and then feeding the maize to the chickens like directly without any processing? I just want to make sure I
Yeah,
understand what you're
so
saying.
we have an interesting innovation happening in our nation, especially that we now have the cold protein concentrates in the feed sector. So what that basically means is that, you know, everything protein and minerals in the feed is catered for, is manufactured. Then the farmer can then add the maize component, which is a carbohydrate. And largely because, you know, 80% of the feed, about 70% of the feed is going to be, you know, maize, the carbohydrates, and then the other, you know, 20-30% is going to be, you know, minerals and protein. And if we can then take out that bulk, the most difficult and the most scientific components are going to be the proteins and the mineral, right? And the farmers can then deal with, you know, the energy components, which is actually, while it's a big bulk, it's actually again you know, the lower cost component of the feed. So we then notice that in our model as well is the, you know, the production and the sales of a protein concentrate feed that the farmers then can mix with the, you know, with the maize that they've grown themselves to actually reduce the cost of their own feed, but allows them to also become profitable as they grow their chickens. Does that make sense?
Wow, that's actually, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so yeah, moving on from the input side, right? You've spoken a little about the feed and the innovation there with the proteins. You guys obviously deal with the actual processing of the chicken. So how does your business model work? Do you aggregate multiple live chickens from farmers and then process it in like a factory, or what's your actual model there?
Yes, we actually we have right now in our pipeline we have 1,800 farmers that are actually are focused especially on chickens. Then we have
Mm,
10,000 that are focused on supplying the grains, right? So
mhm.
these 1,800 farmers focusing. We actually have a calendar for each of these farmers that allows them to grow chickens within a certain time frame, and we then aggregate their chicken coming into our slaughterhouse. And as we process this chicken, we then can work around with the markets. And the way we've actually done is we've also you know, introduced our technology, especially AI now, to make predictions on when a certain number or volume of chickens will be demanded, or even what sizes of the chicken the market might demand for which season of the year. So we then bring that back to the farmer as markets, and then the farmers can be able to, you know, focus on ensuring that they are supplying chicken that is actually going to be in demand exactly to the need, you know, that the market would then be able to provide. So that's what we do.
Well, this is very interesting stuff. Just listening to what you're saying, I wouldn't be surprised if someone from Nigeria listens to this and invites you down here to help because this kind of the technology and information is actually quite essential. And I think that as Africans, we need to share knowledge and work with each other, not for free necessarily, but because I think that some of the stuff that you guys are doing in Uganda can actually have a very positive impact here in Nigeria. And that kind of leads me on to the question of I don't like to talk too much about politics and government, but I just want to know what kind of support, what kind of policies are you aware of that are in the poultry sector in Uganda? What works and what doesn't work, so that maybe people in other countries might be able to learn from that.
Okay, just picking up from what you were saying earlier, is one of our investors actually said something very interesting that, you know, as Africans, we can easily share things, including donating blood, but we never share knowledge. And it's a very critical thing. And that if we
Yeah.
begin to share knowledge, we are going to go to the next level. So really, I mean, speaking about policies, especially, is we have right now still an advantage that we have, you know, our feeds are VAT free. That means you don't have to charge value added tax on the feeds. And then we have, raw materials still coming in, without the need for import duty. And that allows us to still produce. And I think across East Africa, maybe even across Africa, if I'm not mistaken, Uganda is very competitive in terms of the price of feeds. We see our neighbors in Kenya actually saying our prices of feed are like half of what they're actually paying per kilogram of feed, So, part of that is in terms of policies, but at the same time, we also still have, quite good soils and very low cost of production of raw materials, including soybean and maize. And that has actually significantly allowed our industries to be a lot more successful. The other thing, though, is interesting is that a lot of our systems, especially in the farming, is informal, right? So it's only the factories and the industries that have been set up that are actually formal systems. But most of the farmers are operating outside of the normal system. But we still have the advantage that things like value added tax is still out of the system for feed, and that allows us to still have feed costs at a slightly lower rate than our neighbors. Yeah.
Interesting, interesting. And just to clarify, did you say that like the import, do you import maize into Uganda and it's actually duty free as well? Just to clarify.
No, not for the maize. A lot of it is minerals and the vitamins that we need for the protein side of the feed.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, very interesting, very interesting. Okay, so and then with the processing, I'm really curious to know, like, before we even go any further, like what made you so passionate about this value chain, like poultry value chain? Did you just stumble into it, or was it something that you've been into just naturally for a long time?
Well, two things really. One, I was born and raised in a farming family, and when I was only 10, my parents, because as a country, our northern region went through a very devastating war, and during that time, every relative in the village would join us in the cities to try and survive the war. And as a result, of course, cost of living was quite high, and our parents introduced chicken farming as a way to survive. I was then introduced to chicken then. But interestingly, down the road, I wanted to naturally be a medical doctor because I come from, a family where my mom is from the medical field. But just at the point of joining university, I missed out by 1 point to get to medical school. And I ended up at agriculture school at the university, and 2 frustrating years of disappointment. I then decided to start dabbling in computer science at the time. And, as you just walk into a computer science class and try as much as possible to learn. And during our second year of the university, we were visiting farms. And I remember stumbling into a very interesting farm in the city that had technology. And at that point, I then realized I had arrived. I love technology, but at the same time, I could then make, the industry farming itself, something that actually could attract a lot of people like myself. And then at the same time, I could actually still find myself inside the industry without doing the drudgery of agriculture and the struggles that, we are all familiar with in the industry. And I knew that, this, because once I have a strong held belief right now that, there's already the transformation that is going to come from agriculture science itself to agriculture is coming to an end. The transformation now most likely would only come from the employment of technology. And I then married that passion to then create a difference for our community. But I also believe that it's the one industry that we have at our disposal that you can easily join in our nation. Actually, I don't know if it's the same in Nigeria, but we have a case that if someone says, okay, I'm going home, or if you ask a farmer, what do you do? Say, I don't do anything, I only farm. So it's actually not even considered, work, right? It's considered just something that you do because you haven't found something else to do. And yet that is the core thing that could create a big difference for everybody. And I noticed that employing technology to disrupt it could then attract a lot more people to come into the industry. Okay.
Well said, well said. And in your story, I didn't really hear anything about, you moving outside of Uganda. So just from a cultural perspective, I mean, in Nigeria, we have a culture of, we call it Jackpot in Nigeria, means people leaving the country, wanting to live abroad, wanting to go to the UK, USA. Have you ever had those desires, or have you just always kind of wanted to do something in Uganda?
Yeah, I actually traveled quite a bit. I went to, I did my master's degree in our neighboring Kenya, and I worked in, international development, and I traveled the world. But at the core of it is, I love to travel to Europe. I love everything else, but I never really found peace or settlement inside of any of those locations, especially knowing that at some point you still have friends and brothers, in the squalor of poverty and struggle, right? And I then knew that if I'm coming from that kind of a privilege, can I be able to take advantage of that, which I have access to? Think I got off them. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. I
Yeah.
lost you for a second. My network. Well, I don't know if it's
Yeah.
yours or mine.
Oh,
But
yeah.
sorry, you were basically talking about having moved, been to different countries and then you realized something. But I lost you after that point.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So for me, it's really at the core of it is you coming from, because when I was doing my master's, I chose a course, and one of the things that actually allured me to the master's degree was the fact that the university was saying we are developing transformative African leaders. And then I knew that, one, I needed to be a leader in an African context. But if you think about Africa, you're thinking about the farmer, really. It's not the farm, it's not the African in the city that you think about when you think about Africa. And I knew that, the only way you can then create that anything significant or transformative, it needed to be with the smallholder farmers. And being able to then, because those are the people that least can be able to transform themselves. So the best you can do is offer them solutions that can change their lives in a way that they then can appreciate it enough that they would want to work even harder. So that's really what empowers me and encourages me every day.
Well said. Well said. Okay, so moving now on to the actually before we go into the tech side of it, what's that like? Being in the processing of chicken. Like, is it difficult? Is it expensive to set up? Like, how is that side of the business?
It's it's expensive to set up, but we've grown over the years from even using our bare hands really to beginning to scale and design technologies. I remember at the core of when we were trying to put in our machinery for processing. Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yes, I remember when we were, designing and installing a new machinery to expand our processing capacity. And, we didn't have a lot of money. I think we had less than $30,000 to install the machinery. And one of our advisors at the time worked for one of the companies called Marel in the Netherlands. And he had actually been, saying, I can actually go into these guys and they can build some technologies that we can use for processing. And I remember one of the managers laughing that we've never built technology this small. And in our context, it was so big, but at the same time, we needed to, begin to go to the next level. We haven't really arrived in terms of the technologies that we need to be able to process, because we still run some parts of our processing that is quite inefficient. And actually, the reason we actually only do about 1,800 farmers rather than 10,000 is just because of our own processing capacity, as well as cold storage, because chicken is a very perishable commodity. I think almost even more perishable than fish, in my experience. And it's quite a difficult process that if you don't handle it quite well, you can actually even lose all your money in the process. I remember even a moment when because we come from a part of the region that is only getting, modernizations of electricity and things like that. And we had, very long blackouts happening. And I remember we had processed almost $5,000 worth of, of chicken. And that all went to waste because of a 5-day outage, and we could not run the gensets long enough. Yeah, so it was quite a heavy loss that we made, but also taught us some of our best lessons, because we then realized you don't have to necessarily process everything. You can actually work around, and that's why what is even behind the technology that we now have for scheduling of the farmers in terms of production. That means I meet exactly the needs of the customer. So the farmer brings in their chicken today, tomorrow it's actually already out in the market.
Yeah, that's good. And the thing is with business, from my experience, you're gonna, take some hits, and the most important thing is that you learn from it, you improve, you change, you pivot, and you bounce back. So I'm really happy to hear that, you learned and that influenced the creation of even new products and solutions. So yeah, that's really interesting. And just to touch on the cold chain, you mentioned the perishability of the chicken. So how does that work now? Do you have your own cold room, and do you hire a cold van as well? Like what's the cold chain aspect look like?
Yeah, we're still in the process of fundraising for our very own. So right now we're using a rented facility, cold rooms and cold trucks as well, within the facility that we currently use. And then, we're looking at, as we scale up, it was very helpful now, because if we had to fundraise for that, we wouldn't then build the same size. We will build slightly bigger. So it's also allowed us to be able to experience it firsthand without having to, just think about it from a theoretical point.
Nice. And you mentioned fundraising, which is always an interesting topic, right? Because you guys have grown from strength to strength. What's the funding landscape like? I mean, are you looking at more investors, or are you able to get loans at a reasonable interest rate in Uganda? What do most people in your situation tend to go for?
Yeah, a loan is actually very difficult for our case. We have 20-30% interest rates. And then you have loans that actually come in and they expect you to pay that off next month. And that's a very difficult thing, because the process of actually even just installing your slaughterhouse, for example, is going to take you 6 months. And, if you have to begin to pay, that becomes a very difficult thing. We've been lucky that in some instances we've had grants coming in from different organizations that we partner with. We've also leveraged partnerships with different companies that may not necessarily give us grants per se, but just allow us to use their facilities, And right now we are looking at external investors that understand the industry, because again, we don't have very strong local investor networks within here, at least that understand the industry, because you know how volatile our industry is. If you put in money, one, it's not very profitable, like tech, for example. So then, being able to look outside of that and looking at impact investors to be able to, absorb some of the risk while at the same time expecting some kind of returns, but not beyond certain levels that we would not be able to afford. And that's the framework that we are operating in. But generally, funding is a bit difficult. And that's also the reason behind our pivoting to becoming a tech company, because then we knew, one, we were building some of the most disruptive technologies overall, but at the same time, it then gave us a better position to stand in terms of fundraising.
And I like the kind of honest answers they're giving here, because you know it's good to not overpromise people on returns and make them really understand that this is the agribusiness industry. These are the actual profits. These are the risks. And people are always going to respect you for that. So I really appreciate the candid nature of your answers. So with regards to the AI and the tech and stuff like that, is this something that exists in the market in Uganda already? You have competitors, and how has that piece been going? How long has the tech been going as well?
Yeah, so I mean, the robotics has actually been in the build for more than 10 years. First as a hobby, but then we've then realized now, the last 2 years, that we needed to put it out into production. So it's not really, I mean, we have a few hobbies trying to build the technology behind it, but not much has been done. And we've tried to even hire different companies to build it for us. But then because we realized we were the ones that understood the problems the most, so we needed to be able to build. And then because I have the understanding coming from self-taught technologies, computer science, and understanding deeply also the agriculture industry, I could then lead a team that can build the technology that would then be working for our farming network. So at the core of it, our technology is, we're employing, maybe just to put more context to it, we're employing technology in 3 key areas for us. Number one is, we're employing robotics with the AI on the smallholder farms. One, to make sure that, the farmers are provided with what we call personalized advice. What I actually mean in this case is that, I use this very weird example for most cases, that if you went to a doctor and when he asked you what is wrong and you were like, I feel a little bit sick, and you begin to cough in his office, and he says, your cough sounds like what I heard last week, and I gave that guy this thing, you would never go back to that doctor or even take his medicine. And yet that's a case that we see on chicken farms. I don't know how it is in Nigeria, but I see that here, that most of veterinary care is actually guesswork. Just a bunch of experienced, technicians coming to your farm, seeing whatever they're seeing, and then based on what they remember, they would then tell you this is what is actually out there on your farm. And we found that that's very erratic, but at the same time, it's not scalable. And then there's not even allow room for younger vets that are coming to be able to even, do efficient work. So we are then employing robotics in that case to collect data autonomously on chicken farms, meaning the environmental conditions like the temperature of the room, the ammonia levels on the floor, and if the birds are comfortable or not, and also taking daily measurements of the weights. We then employ the AI behind the scenes to make sure that it's analyzing the weights, for example, and saying to the farmer, today you did a very good job. You're 80% of what was expected of you. And that then allows the farmers to consistently and continuously improve on their flock, but also just maintain their production. And the second case that we are using technology is on the market end, because we notice that, for the farmer, if you walk to a farmer and they say, I want your chicken, the farmer thinks the biggest chicken is actually the best chicken. But we quite often find ourselves in a situation that, everybody loves the biggest chicken, but they're not willing to pay always for the biggest chicken. And many times whoever loses is the farmer. And then we realize that, how can we then make that mix work for the farmer that is both profitable, but also matching exactly the trend. So with what we then do is work with the hotels and the restaurants that we're working with to, number one, begin to understand what exactly they're demanding. If it's a chicken of 1 kilo, which you already tell me exactly that's what I want for the next, 6 months. And then maybe at Christmas, I want the 1.5 kilo chicken. We then bring that back to the farmer, aggregate it, and say, I have 20 hotels that want chickens of 1 kilo. For you, that would take you 30 days. And then because we have robots on the farm actually taking measurements of the weights every day, we then know which farmers would actually be ready by when to have their chickens processed for that exact market. And that allows us then, to be efficient in terms of our whole processing. And then on the third component that we are also employing technology is that we now have introduced chicken eggs as of this year. And we noticed that, I don't know if you also experience that in your case, but we found situations where you buy a bunch of eggs, you can't look inside the eggs, right? It's not like chicken that you can tell if it's gone bad. And inside the shell, you might end up with some rotten eggs. And what we're doing is we've found a way to build very old school technology, but marry that with advanced technology that scans the eggs without breaking it, and then allows the restaurant or the hotelier to get the chicken eggs that they actually exactly need. An example that I can give in this case is a person that actually is baking, for example, would want eggs that, can easily separate between the yolk and the egg white. And you notice that that has to be a fresh egg that is less than 15 days old. A person that is making powdered eggs, for example, does not care, of separating these two. So that therefore means that he's more comfortable with any type of egg. He's not going to be sensitive to that. And because we can, accurately detect that, we then are matching exactly the customer to the type of egg that they need. And we've now built the AI to help us to do that. And for us, even then, is that, the AI allows us that even if I hire Juma Lobi tomorrow, you don't have to go through months of training to understand how to scan that egg and tell which one is the best. The AI already is out there doing the work for you. You just have to be able to learn how the tool works. And in a few hours, you're already, working within our premises and delivering top-notch results in terms of your work. Yeah.
Wow, wow, this is amazing stuff. I mean, all of the different solutions from the personalized, information for the farmers to the markets information to the final one that you just mentioned about the eggs. Like all of these are very powerful tools. And like you said, with you being more in the tech space, actually investors would be really excited about these kinds of things, especially when you add AI into the mix. So very, very interesting stuff, and I've really loved your story so far. I'm very keen to know, like, I mean, obviously you're working on the AI tools and stuff, but what's next for your company? I mean, within the next sort of 5 years, what do you guys have planned for the future?
Yeah, at the core of it is, we really want to scale at a level that, one, we can, if we can 5x the numbers of farmers that we're currently working with, that would then allow us to begin to push beyond our boundaries and our borders. We're right now operating only within just the context of our region, which is not even the greater northern Uganda, really. We have a country that has one of the lowest per capita chicken consumption in Africa at only 1.6 kilos per person per year. I don't know what the numbers are for Nigeria, but I compare that to South Africa. That's 10x what we are actually consuming now. That means we still have a lot of demand and room to expand our chicken processing. But we would then also want to be able to expand our technology beyond our borders, allowing room for even farmers outside, maybe even in Nigeria, to allow, to begin to operate in this kind of context with their farms being more efficient and having advice for their farms being more personalized. So we're looking at those two lines of growth.
Wow, exciting stuff ahead then. The scaling up and then, adding this technology to different markets is very good. And like you said, the per capita consumption is low. There's a lot more room for growth for your company. So I really do wish you the best of luck with your future endeavors. With that being said, thank you so much for really being here, sharing all this information. Can you share some social medias or whatever details you want to share for people to reach out to you if they want to collaborate in any way?
Yeah, sure. We have our website at www.riverpoultry.com. You can find that on our website, and you can also find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram at River Poultry Limited, and that allows you to engage with us. And we have, for those that want to reach out for partnerships, can just reach out to hello@riverpoultry.com. And that allows us we have access to all of those at least 24 hours a day to be able to interact and engage. And we're open really to partnerships of any kind, whether it's even chances to inspire young people across the borders or any place. We are open to speaking. We are open to sharing some of the possibilities in terms of our technologies. We're also open to training of farmers across Africa.
Amazing. This is so good to hear. And I like that you're open to new partnerships in different markets as well. So again, thank you so much. This has been very enlightening actually, and I think a few of my colleagues in the poultry sector would be very interested in this conversation. So have a lovely day. We'll definitely keep in touch after this, and I wish you the best of luck with your business.
All right, thank you very much for hosting.
All right now. Bye.